Yo, what's up, people? I am here in the background, guys. I'm just giving it a minute or two for people to log on and for me to sit down and get my shit together. Got a bit of a warped perspective for this one. I've had to plug in my phone on the other side of the room at the moment, so I'm kind of wrestling with my camera, but I should be able to do this okay. How's it going, Mike? You alright, mate? We got shit down here, man. I can only imagine how you got it up there. Pissing down constantly at the moment. So, anyway. Hopefully a couple of you will stick around in a sec. I'll just give it a minute for people to check in properly. And then we'll get going. How's it going, Stacey? You alright, fella? For some reason, I've still got a cable tie in my pocket. I just found that. Oh well, right. I'll sort that out in a bit. Right then. Yeah, a few more people will be logging on in a minute, so might as well just crack on. Right, okay, guys. I'm going to flip it round. You have to look at my ugly mug for a few minutes. Let's bring you into focus. Yep. Hopefully the light behind me won't be too distracting. I know this isn't the ideal shot to be looking at my mug in. I should be using the fat girl angle shot from down here, but you know what, I don't give a shit. This is the best I can do with the stand that I've got. As you can probably guess, I've got a new tripod. People watch my last video know that my shitty little tripod that I always use, Aaron had weakened by messing about with. It finally broke. I was twisting the camera around on the last video and it just went and just fell off, and I was doing the rest of the video holding it by hand. I can't do videos like that, and I've only just found the time to start doing videos again. So anyway, how's it going? How you all doing? Hope you're having a good autumn. Last of the summer's now gone. I know I didn't get a chance to exactly talk to you all and be sociable in the last video because I was having a bit of a rant. If you haven't seen it yet, that kind of links to this video. Had a big problem with regards to doing a video about the 3DO, which if you take a look at the last video, it'll all be explained. But yeah, last video was a bit of a rant. This is a lot more of a nice video to be watching. It's just if you want to take a look at the system, I'm just kind of going back to that now. I've been out of action for a couple of months. I've been renovating my house. I've been looking at new plans for events next year. I've gone to a couple of events, not just working, just socially. I put a post up the other day about being at the Southwest Amiga group meet with Aaron about 2 weeks ago. That was a good laugh and a good way to see out the summer. We haven't had much of a summer this year anyway, but I had a lot to do back here. So I've not found, I'll switch off after events, and I've not found any time to kind of be sociable with people much online or do anything like this. So I just haven't had the time. I've been up to my elbows in paint and plaster and whatever else. And as you've seen, I mean, I'm still doing my gaming stuff, and as a lot of you have seen recently, I've been working hard back in my workshop. I've kind of unofficially put Tourniquets on full hiatus now. We're not really building. The demand's dropped off. It's kind of coming to a natural conclusion after, 16, 17 years I've been doing it. And I just, it's time to focus on other things. I am still building certain custom projects for people, but it was time to kind of put all that on the back burner. The event's taking care of things now, and it was time to start looking at my personal projects. Now, a lot of my personal projects, obviously I'm still working on my Spectrum Next game. That had to take a back seat for a while, but I will be getting back on that. I've been able to look after a few health things, and I've been able to take care of shit back home because my wife's job's kind of busy and that's in fact that's where she is this evening. She's off studying at college for a degree for it, so I've had to kind of just make sure everything's been looked after back home. So it was time for me to take a back seat and just kind of disappear off the scene for a while. I've been throwing out my little comments here and there, and I've been spending a lot of time in the workshop anyway. As you might have seen, I've done up a lot of cabinets recently. I've now got a lot of my machines on permanent. I mean, I haven't said anything much until now, but a lot of my machines now that I tend to take to events, my arcade machines, are now on permanent loan to a new arcade bar that opened up a few months ago in Barnsley. up north called Retro Dome. I know, obviously, I'm big supporter of Arcade Club. Me and Andy, good friends. They supported our events, we've supported theirs. There's a lot more of these little local bars and that cropping up now, and they needed a hand with some machines, and so they contacted me, and I've now given my machine somewhere to live over the winter rather than being in my freezing cold workshop, which inevitably takes its toll. So they've got several of my machines up there now. They're looking after them, and they're taking care of them for me over the winter. And then there's also, I've been working on a few. You've seen me do quite a few machines recently, which I've been waiting for years to do. Some of them. I mean, I've done up my Terra Cresta machine. My Fix-It Felix has had a full service. I've converted a Double Dragon 1, Double Dragon 2 machine, and I converted that Alien Storm machine, which you see. I'm working on a few more at the moment. I've got a couple of fellas helping me out trying to get those back running. I've got a new Astro City that's going to be fixed up and got running. There's going to be my Mortal Kombat 2 is going to have a monitor replaced. My NBA Jam, which hasn't been at events for years, is going to have a new monitor fitted to it. And see, I've got all the time to do that now. My plan is by winter, instead of having like 30 machines with only half running at any one time, I intend to have 30 machines that are all good to go and fully working. I've got my X-Men to touch up, my Ridge Racer, my Sega Megatech, which was one of the first machines I ever bought and never had it running. So they're all going to be done in the run-up to Christmas, and they'll soon be put on location in Barnsley, and then they will be brought back. A lot of people have asked what I'm going to do around event time. Well, I've worked out an arrangement with them where come event time I will be able to go and take some of my machines back for the weekend, or I will be able to borrow some of their machines, which will be quite cool for anybody who wants to see something a bit different. And obviously I've been doing a lot ready for next year. We're not doing a large event next year for Revival, as some of you already seen. We're doing the two-parter Revival for the gamers. First event's going to be free for members only, and it's only going to be cheap for everybody else. We're just giving back to the community. Too many events have gone completely commercial. A lot of the small events have fallen off the radar. Well, we've actually got the motivation, the interest, and the crowd to keep it real. So next year we're doing 2 smaller events, a lot more manageable. Still going to be just as social. Still going to have guests. We're still going to have all our arcades and everything there. And I think people are just really going to enjoy it. And I turn 40 next year. I want to take some time off. And rather than spending my entire first half of the year messing about planning a massive event, and I'm going to take another look at the event scene, because some things are changing, and I want to be able to bring the best Revival that we can without me, busting a blood vessel over it. So yeah, so that's what's going on with me anyway. So I'm back now. I'm going to be a lot more sociable online. Like I say, pretty soon I'll be doing some new videos on here. I'll be covering the Spectrum Next again. A lot of people have been asking me for some Spectrum Next progress. I haven't had much contact with the guys over there over the summer because they know I've been taking some time off. But there's a lot of developments gone on, and I'll be in contact with some of those people because I want to be able to show the latest developments. They've been working hard on a lot of games over the summer, and it'd be cool to just kind of showcase how they're going. Plus, my Spectrum Next had a nice pimping as well, so 40 again. No, it's 39 this time, mate. I'm 40 next year. How's it going, Rich? Nice to see you on. Thanks for everyone for rejoining my streams and that. I was wondering if anyone had any interest in them. But yeah, I'm just trying to bring you something new. This is one system I haven't covered yet. Not a particularly rare system, but it's a system I've wanted to talk about for a while. I intended to do this video back in April it was originally. And just to kind of recap, what happened was, as everyone knows, I'm a big supporter of flash devices and upgrading old systems with flash loaders and EverDrives and things like that to make them a lot easier to use for events and for casual use at home without getting up and changing discs or worrying about failing lasers and rubbish like that. And I ordered the one for the 3DO back in April from the only person who creates it. And long story short, I got completely fucked over by the creator. He went out of his way to install some custom ransomware onto the device that he sent me after one went missing in the post. Made everything really difficult for me, and basically I told him that I would refuse to endorse the product. You know, I will tell people that it's just not worth the hassle, it's not worth the price, which it isn't. And it's certainly not worth dealing with someone with that level of arrogance or that level of attitude. I wouldn't go to him for anything else in the future, and I would encourage anybody else to go to him. Never been stung on any device I ever bought. It's the first one, and it's a biggie. You know, the guy, it's not just accidental or like incidental. The guy has gone out of his way to be a prick. That's the bottom line. He's an absolute piece of shit, and I would never deal with him again. And I'd encourage anybody on the UK scene thinking of dealing with him, don't go near his device for the 3DO, and don't go near his device for the Dreamcast. He doesn't need endorsing. People like that are not needed on this scene. And my offer is still out there, that if anybody out there does want to take this device and reverse engineer it and take it and make a new device for the 3DO where we don't have to deal with this level of arrogance, then I've got £1,000 kind of bounty on it, because I'd love to see a new device come out where it's not being held to ransom by some egotistical prat. So yeah, that's that. But anyway, the 3DO, I'm going to flick around now, get out of my face. The 3DO was more of a technology than it was an actual system. Developed by chiefly by Panasonic, and there was a couple of other companies involved. I can't remember exactly who off the top of my head, but I think it was around the 1992 the first feelers came out about it. And it was going to be this emerging technology that would then be kind of spotted out to different manufacturers to make their own consoles based on the hardware. That didn't end up becoming a big thing. In the end, Panasonic made the majority of the consoles, and then I think Gold Star, I think in Japan, got a license to make some of the consoles, and there may have been one other as well, which escapes me off the top of my head. But yeah, the system itself, it promised a lot at the time. And if you ever looked at any of the kind of techie magazines from the time, you look at like a magazine like Edge, for example. Edge used to cover all the kind of cutting edge stuff. The 90s was a really good time, I think, for consoles and for gaming in general, because it really was. It was the era that coined the term next gen. You know, the fifth generation of consoles that were on the way really were going to be breaking new ground, because they were going to be starting to look at, you know, Sanyo, that's the other one. Thanks, Rich. Yeah, they were going to be handling 3D graphics. They were going to have full motion video. They were going to have enhanced digital sound capabilities, and obviously a lot of them were moving towards CD as a storage medium, which allowed for a lot more data to be stored on there, and games would potentially be better. However, there were two systems which came out at around the same time, which unfortunately kind of got the wrong end of the stick with regards to what would be next generation. Now, you got to remember, like, you know, the late 80s, early 90s, one thing that kind of impressed people but never really found a footing was full motion video. You know, full motion video was something that was never possible on, you know, typical consoles at the time, even if it was starting to be possible on PCs and, you know, the higher end microcomputers. But so to see it on consoles and things like that, people thought it was astonishing. It was kind of showing us the way forward. But before long, everybody realised that, you know, FMV, although it looked impressive, you know, on an advert or, you know, on a little soundbite, there was never anything to the games. And, you know, even though you could do cool things with full motion video like Dragon's Lair had done several years earlier, none of the games that ever kind of really emerged, you know, at the end of the 80s, early 90s, had any depth to them. And, you know, we've been playing at that point much more advanced games in the arcade. You know, we had the resurgence of Street Fighter, of the arcades, with like Street Fighter 2 coming out, and the silver age of the arcades. And, you know, full motion video and that, it was an interesting experiment, but it never really carried forward. And of course, the further we went into the fifth generation, the big boys were promising, you know, a lot more. They were promising, full polygonal graphics. They were promising, full CD soundtracks and digital sound. And obviously, Nintendo, Sony and Sega were promising massive things with the Saturn, the N64 and the PlayStation. And obviously we know how that all turned out. But earlier on, we had promises from both Philips and from Panasonic. And the CDI and the 3DO were the first to kind of open people's eyes to this kind of new world. And, a lot of the tech demos that were being run at the time was showing, what these systems were going to be capable of. They were going to be, these sleek new CD-based systems, and they were going to show us the way forward. But they never really did that. So, as a system, the most common model, there were several models of the 3DO. The 3DO fared much better than the CDI did in terms of games and in terms of reputation, and you'll see why shortly. But one thing that was a big problem was the price. You've got to bear in mind that at the time, you'd have been shelling out, £100 to £200 for a 16-bit console like the Mega Drive or the SNES, with some top games including peripherals. When they announced what the 3DO was going to come out at, everybody kind of shit their pants, because I think the first touted prices were like £300. Then there was like whispers of more, and I think the first model I actually saw appear, I saw them appear on Grey Import originally, and they were like something stupid, like $500 or $600, which when you translated it and you added in your import taxes, that was like 500 quid. Nobody was going to pay that kind of money. And sadly, when they arrived here, I don't have the information to hand. Someone who's probably watching this can probably look it up, but the price for this when it came to UK release was probably close to about £400, I think, on launch. And that was just astronomical amount of money. We're coming out of the 80s. The UK, very different to the rest of the world market, in that we were coming out of deep recession in the 80s. 80s was not a time of prosperity in the UK, and that kind of money, nobody could afford that, and nobody was willing to take the chance on spunking 300 or 400 quid on a system that had no proven track record and no proven longevity. So Mark's just said there, I paid £500 for his Gold Star from Gaming Wolverhampton, so 500 quid, that was a ridiculous amount. So anyway, of the models that came out, there were a few versions. There was this is the most common, and in my honest opinion, it's still my favourite of all the systems. This is the Panasonic FZ1 model, or if you're American, the FZ1. But yeah, it was this was the most popular model to come out, and in all honesty, it's not a bad looking system. It's got this kind of, it's like a charcoal grey with like a slight metal flake set into the plastic. It's in this kind of black kind of semi-gloss finish, and with like it's a nice symmetrical shape with like 4 big kind of podium feet at the sides. You've got your CD drawer on the front with the open and close on the right, and your power button on the left. At the back, we've got our typical inputs. We've got RCA, or composite if you prefer. We've got, I think we've got F's video on the back of here, and we've got standard RF as well. But nobody fucks around with RF these days, let's face it. One slight quirk of these, which I always found slightly annoying, the actual power supply, it's inside these, which is fine, but the power cord is hardwired into the system. Obviously, that was only ever done to save money, and it's like you might think it's more convenient, but when you come to pack these things away and put them away, like in a cupboard or in a box or something like I do for events, that is not an ideal thing to do, because that's an easy way to get your cables mashed and end up wrecking it. So at some point, a common mod I've seen for these is they take out the hardwired cable, install a figure 8 socket and then that way you can use a standard figure 8 cable like you would for a Dreamcast, Saturn or a PlayStation, and obviously I've got loads of them, so that's something I may do. I've got it plugged into the TV today using composite, because that is what I tend to use for most things, and the picture through composite on this is pretty good. This is a UK PAL model, and it's putting out the PAL signal at the moment. But strange curiosity with these, they're kind of part region free. The majority of games from other regions will run. There's no true region lock on the PAL model, so it will run certain NTSC American games. It'll run all NTSC Japanese games apart from one or two. That is something to do with the alphabet and like the lettering that it uses is kind of hard coded into the system, and some Japanese games require the full kanji alphabet in order to be able to display properly. I think there's some Korean games which are similar. And I don't know the titles of those, but I'm sure it's not anything you're going to miss, basically. So it will play Japanese and American games. There's still one or two titles, some of the later ones, which did have some kind of primitive kind of region lock on the disc, and it just refuses to load the game. But you can, at the end of the day, I think there's patches available for those, and the good thing is that it's kind of region free, and it runs copies without any kind of modification. The lasers can be a bit temperamental, but it will run most copies, and you can run copies from any region. If your laser's starting to fail though, it will struggle to read the copies. It take a lot more time than it will to read originals. So yeah, it is region free. The only thing is, obviously, because it's outputting 60 Hz games on a 50 Hz system, without modification, any games that are 60 Hz will play a lot slower on here, which is a bit of an annoyance. Whilst that wouldn't matter if the game is just a little bit slower, on certain games that rely on FMV and things like that, the audio actually comes out at a slower pace than the video that's being played. You get a strange kind of like a screen tearing effect going on, and the audio doesn't sync up with the video, so a little bit of a problem there with that. But you know, there's possibilities there. As far as I'm aware, there's no proper 60 Hz modification you can do to this. The best you can do is replace it with a motherboard out of an American system, but then again, you might as well just buy a full American console if you're going to do that. There's a lot more PAL games that won't work on an American 3DO than there is American games that won't work on a British 3DO. So this is probably the best option you can get anyway. There is a modification you can do to actually output a 240p signal, which gives you the best possible image you can. But strangely, no 50-60 Hz modification that I know to anyway. I've had a dig around. But it doesn't really matter too much, you know. The type of games you're playing on here, you're not going to notice any major difference. And I think at this point in the game, you know, companies were starting to compensate 60 Hz games when they came to the PAL region to be the same. They were modifying the games to make them play at the same speed as they did when they were 60 Hz. So it's not too much of a problem. So I'll try and demonstrate that as I actually show you some games on here in a minute. But yeah, so that is the system in general. There is a top loader version called the FZ10, which was also made by Panasonic. That one's a little more complex inside and also a bit more prone to failing. It's a top loader, so it hasn't got a slide and draw mechanism, so you potentially think there's less points of failure, but no. It fails a lot more. That one's a little bit more pricey. And the other one is the Gold Star 3DO. It's basically the same as this, except the Panasonic logo there is replaced with the Gold Star logo. It's got Gold Star logo on top, with a little bit more gold lettering, I think, on it. And then one more, somebody else mentioned there, yeah, there is a Sanyo version of the 3DO, which is also a front loader, if I remember correctly. But it's very rare to come by. I know a couple of people who watch these have actually got it. A couple of people have mentioned, actually, that they got one. I think someone was selling one not long ago. Would have been nice to have got it, but they're a little bit harder to modify as well. So, you know, with the prices as they were at the time of that, it was easy enough to get one of these. I did have 2 3DOs at one point. This one was fully boxed. I managed to get it from one of the Comic Cons at Birmingham before we started Revival, and I managed to get a deal where I paid £80 for this console, fully boxed, with a full rack of fully boxed 3DO games. That was an incredible deal, you know. We're talking like, you know, 8 years ago now, but still, you know, that's how long I've had this, and it served me well. I did have a second one as well, which I managed to pick up for a bargain a few years ago, but unfortunately, I don't know how, but that went missing at the very first Revival that we did. I believe it was stolen. We had a few things stolen that year. I'm not quite sure how you steal a whole console, but yeah, the whole console went missing, so that was a bit of a sad one. But they're getting quite expensive now. You can buy a 3DO for as little as £100 if you have a dig around, but you're looking to probably pay about £200 for a decent one these days. For Special Reserve, yeah, I remember Special Reserve, man. The Robo 3DO, a hotel unit that holds 5 3DO games. Wasn't aware of that one, mate. Oh, was it your pad that went with it, Gareth? Fucking hell, mate. Sorry about that. Shit, man. Oh, you remember it happening there, don't you, mate? Because I was fucking fuming when that happened. Oh, yeah, talking of controllers, that's one major curiosity about this system. A couple of people who're not that familiar with it. Notice, only one controller port. So how do you play 2-player? Well, it's a bit of a strange quirk, but I kind of get why they did it. If you look on the top of the controller, this isn't a typical controller. This is obviously a rapid fire controller. You can see all the switches there for auto fire and also slow motion. You notice on the top, you've got your shoulder buttons, and there's also a little tab there. If I pop that out, it's just a little plastic insert. You'll see there's another 9-pin connector in there. And the way you play, obviously, your 2-player games or multiplayer games, obviously the idea is to negate the need for a multi-tap of any kind. And what every single controller, or what most controllers, have got this kind of port on the top. And the idea was that you all shared one connection on the front of the console, and then you daisy-chained the controllers together, which was great because most of them are made with very, very long cables. This cable here is probably over 6 foot long, and I've got a couple that are a bit longer than that. But I can start to see that at some point they would have run into problems with the number of inputs that can be pressed simultaneously. And I've also got some infrared controllers, and obviously they don't have that link up in there. They just use one receiver, and then 2 controllers use the one thing, but they work like shit, so I never bother with them. So, yeah, the pad itself technically is a 5-button pad, which is very strange. You've got 3 face buttons like you would have on a Mega Drive, A, B and C. You've got a D-pad, which is generally a little bit ropey on most of them, but it's not too bad. You've got a play and pause button, which is actually labelled as such. The idea being this was supposed to be a multimedia machine, and if you're playing video, you could obviously use that to play the video, or, you know, play or pause your video. And then you had a stop X button, which is like start and select pretty much. But then you've also got shoulder buttons on mouse pads, which comes in handy when you're playing certain games. So yeah, you can play. If there were more 6-button games, you can play them, but it's a little bit finicky with the six buttons you've got generally at your disposal being 2 shoulder buttons and then like a start button. It's a bit strange. I'll show you that shortly. But yeah, this is one of the obstacles you'll have in getting a 3DO these days. Even though it looks like a standard 9-pin connection, it's not. The 3DO uses a custom pinout, and it uses a custom voltage, and I've known people who've broken their 3DOs because they try and plug in a normal controller. If you try and use the standard 9-pin, the Atari standard, the Sega standard, you try and plug one of those into one of these, you can break your system. So never try and do that, and it means you have to find original controllers, and because they weren't particularly well built, you tend to find that you have to try and hunt down decent controllers. When you do, make sure you hang on to it, give it a good clean, and look after it. So yeah, that's the one obstacle you will have when it comes to owning a 3DO. There's a headset jack in the standard controller. Like I say, I prefer using this one because it's slightly wider than the normal one. The shoulder buttons are also a bit more comfortable. But yeah, the auto fire doesn't really come in handy on most of the type of games you play on here. But yeah, it's just a bit more of a comfortable pad. That's why I use this one. On the standard one, there's also a headphone jack on there as well. The Gold Star pads are there. There you go. So, that is the 3DO anyway. As a system, it's quite powerful. At the time, it was a lot more powerful than the the SNES or the Mega Drive. In theory, it obviously had a lot more colours. It could support FMV straight out the box. You could run I think they did VCDs for it, and obviously you could play your CDs and whatever else. As a system, it's not terribly well built. It's very plasticky and a kind of not as bad as like an Atari. It's a lot better put together than that. The seams and everything all join up nicely, but it's more akin to Mega Drive construction than the kind of the bit more sleek, accurate construction of like a lot of the Nintendo consoles. So it's not as good as a Mega Drive. They're not as well built over time. They fail and everything. Very easy to get into though. Only 4 screws to get the lid off, and servicing the inside very well. This one has actually been modified. Like I said, I don't want to go into this device too much because I don't want to endorse the arsehole. But this one's actually got the USB host device built into it. It goes in place of the CD drive, which was still working on this. But I've basically taken the CD drive out, the device goes inside, and I've loaded up the USB device inside with all the ROMs that I need. That front flap there was usually on the CD mechanism. What I've done is I've taken that off, and I've literally just glued that into place on the front to kind of blank it all off properly. So that doesn't actually come out. If I press the eject button now, it goes straight back to the menu, which is what I'm going to show you now. So you can see there's the 3DO logo, and then it'll load into the flash solution. So we're going to take a look at a few games, and what I was in just was basically the system BIOS. If you load it up with no game, and it was one of the first systems to kind of load without anything installed. If you turned it on with no game installed, the screen saver you were looking at just is what you'll be presented with. You can use that to go back to the actual BIOS and handle the game save. This used an internal battery to save your games, but the space it had available was so tiny, you were constantly deleting them. I do actually need to change the internal battery in this because this one's long expired, but unlike the CDI, the dead battery doesn't brick your system, so thankfully. So eventually I will replace that battery for the game saves, but it's not as big a concern anymore because with the flash device, you can actually save your games to a file on this flash device. So you don't actually need a battery backup at all, but you do need to create separate save files for each of the games. So, Demolition Man game, right? We'll go through a few and show you the type of games that are available on this system. So, I'm just going to move the camera over, put you a bit more in front of the screen, and we'll talk about some of the games that you can get. So, you can see I've divided up my games on here into a few different areas, and I will talk about games from each area, just to kind of give you a bit more of a balanced overview. And we'll start with Europe, obviously, because that's where we are, and that's where some of these games on here will be the ones that you remember. So, never had a massive library, the 3DO. Probably only about 100 games or so ever released for the system. And most of the affairs were either remakes of games that were already available on other systems. You'll see a few familiar titles here, such as Alone in the Dark 2. Obviously, they were big on the PC at the time, I think. Battle Chess, that's a port, obviously, of a PC game. And then you got things which made their way to consoles like Cannon Fodder. We've got some decent ports on here of games that wouldn't have been possible on his other systems, though, like Dragon's Lair. Although, and this is going to sound really strange, the controls are actually a little bit crap on Dragon's Lair. It runs very well, the video looks nice, the sound's nice, but the controls, there's something very wrong with the way it reads inputs, and it's very difficult to play. Escape from Monster Manor, FIFA, which found its way onto fucking everything. Good port of Flashback. The FMV looks brilliant on this. We've got a boxing game there, Fowls of Alley. Gex, which I always kind of regard Gex as the flagship game for the system. And even though you probably didn't really need to play it on a 3DO, you know, I mean, it was only on a couple of systems. It doesn't really show off the 3DO. It is a good game. And it's a good game to play. If you like your platformers, it's very typical of a 90s platformer. So we'll start with that. And yeah, this USB device a little bit faster than the CD drive, so it should load up a bit quicker. I'll turn the volume up slightly for you. It does get quite loud, so I'll be careful. Try to drop my controller and break anything.
Finished my usual morning routine of nude funker size, fired up the Barca Lounger, grabbed a quick bite to eat, and prepared to watch some serious tube. Little did I know, my snack was sent by Red.
Just moving you a bit closer, guys, 1 second. There we go. So the FMV, you know, for mid-90s, well, early 90s, I think it's pretty passable. It's as good as anything that would have appeared on PlayStation in its very early days. You know, there's a good amount of colours on there. You know, the frame rate on the actual, you know, it's a decent amount of frames per second. And it's quite smooth as well. Let's jump into the game. And the sound and everything's really good, you know, the music's quite funky. Speech and everything's really good. And let's see if I can remember how to do this. It's been a while since I played it. Find the remote control, that's it, yeah. It's been a while, but you've got a couple of attacks. You've got your tail whip. You've got your tail whip and you've got your tongue, and I think you can, that's it, you can go through the floor if you need to collect stuff. And you can climb the walls because you are a gecko, I suppose. Not a terribly fast game, but you know, the animation's nice, you know. It'll remind a lot of people of something like Donkey Kong Country in terms of the animation. You know, you've got a well-animated character. It's obviously been drawn originally on some kind of 3D modelling system. And you know, the level design's quite innovative, you know, using the obviously the gecko character as a thing. Some cool little warping effects there. I'm terrible at this game, by the way, so I apologise. It looks like I'm playing it like shit, but like I say, it's been a while since I played it. But yeah, it's the kind of game, you know, if you've got time, you know, it's not like shitty like Bubsy the Bobcat or something like that. The game's got a little bit of depth to it, and it is quite long, so it's definitely a game that's worth checking out if you do get a 3DO. It's probably one of the first games you should actually get. I did have this as an original, but I sold it obviously once I got my flash device. So, but yeah, very, very good game for the system. There's the remote. I don't know where the end of the level is, to be honest. God, it has been a long time since I played this. I can't hardly remember what I'm doing. Yeah, I killed myself. So anyway, that is Gex. You know, typical kind of 90s, anthropomorphic animal platformer. So, but yeah, that is kind of that's one of the first games you think of when you think of the 3DO, and it's a good one. It is a good one. There's no denying. A lot of people look at the libraries for this, and people say, well, it's not really what was popular at the time. Where's all the sports games? Where's all the action platformers? You don't really get a lot of that on the 3DO. It's much more of an acquired taste. Talking about some of those ports here, we'll load up Battle Chess. Now, Battle Chess will be familiar to a lot of people. I first played this game back in about 1990, I think it was. My friend had an Atari ST, and we played it for the first time on there, and I thought it was absolutely amazing. It's just so cool to see take such a boring game and make something quite cool of it. And the way the little characters animate and hit each other and that is pretty cool. And this is quite a good port. Instead of all taking place kind of zoomed out, just overlooking the board, it zooms in when there's any kind of action going on. So, let's get into it anyway. Chrysalis, I think they're responsible for quite a lot of software around that time. I'm sure you can shout out probably a couple of titles that they did, probably more than I can. Of course, it says there 1993, 1994. But yeah, there's a lot more colour going on here than there was, a lot more colour going on here than there was on the Amiga ST versions or the PC version, which I think was CJ colour only. You get a lot more animation, the whole board pans round. We'll try and get a character to fight just so you can see the effect. Let's take... Interplay went on to make Rock and Roll Racing. Yes, they did. I think Interplay a publisher though, so yeah, they probably did publish titles for a lot of different platforms. But yeah, I think it's Chrysalis Software with the actual coders for this. So let's put the knight into a dangerous position. We'll see if we get the knights to fight. Let's turn the camera a little bit. Here we go. I knew he was going to take somebody and take the pawn. It's always kind of slow game, but it's quite cool because it zooms right in. Then you get this nice high resolution fight. Have it. Gotta love a bit of battle chess. If you like the game, it's quite cool to play. I'll do this because then you'll see the queen take the knight. There were some brilliant animations. I remember the castles turned to little rock monsters like the Thing. I used to play this for hours, me and my mate, back in the day. Obviously not the most action-packed game for a next-gen system, but, showing that obviously, consoles were capable of doing things at that point that the more advanced microcomputers were doing. Here you go. It's probably going to take me with the bishop or the queen. Queen's going to kick his ass. And like I say, you get this nice zoomed-in effect, which you never got on the originals. I'm going to bitch slap him. Well, she's minging, but she's got a rack on her. Excellent. So that was Battle Chess anyway. I'm sure it's a game a lot of you out there will remember. Take a look at a couple more. We'll look at something a bit more tasking now. I mean, cannon fodder's there. It looks pretty much like the console versions. We'll take a look at Dragon's Lair just to show you, what a typical FMV game would look like on this system. There are some superb FMV games as it happens. Not necessarily for the way they play, but for the storyline and the acting. I mean, Wing Commander 3 on here. I think it's got Mark Hamill in at some point. He plays one of the characters. It's a little bit quiet, but you can see the frame rates there. There always seems to be a sound imbalance between games. And okay, it's nowhere near as colour rich or high resolution as the video from the arcade original, or certainly not the remastered versions. But you know what? For the time, no other system was able to do it. And let's just see if we can at least do the first room or two. See how we get on. Like I say, the controls are slightly... It's hard to describe, but the controls are very loose on this. I'll probably fuck it up if I'm honest, so... There we go, so I missed the first screen. I think it's attack and then up. But you have to get your timing bang on, else it doesn't work. Yeah, like the timing window on the arcade, you can keep tapping the buttons. On this, you can't. Yeah, so I'm just going to get fucking hammered. I'm sure it's A, I'm sorry, pressing not B. Yeah, I'm just getting fucking nailed. I'm going to give up because it frustrated me last time I tried to play it. If you learn the timing and you kind of get it down again, you can go all the way through it, but I'm not going to waste my time with it now. It'll just piss me off. So, but yeah, that's a typical kind of FMV game. Space Ace is on here, and that actually does respond a little better than that. So, actually, we'll jump on to Space Ace. I think this might only be the demo for the PAL region. I don't know if you've got a full release. Yeah, you can watching a bit, Rich. Again, Space Ace, another great one. And let's just see if we can play any of it. Here we go. Right, left. I can't remember the order. I used to know these games off by heart, man. I honestly can't remember. But anyway, yeah, you can see like the video performance is really good on this. So let's head back to the title screen. Right, I'll play a bit more of an action-packed game now. The first one I'm going to think of, and this is another one of my go-to games on this, is let's find it. There we go, Road Rash. Now, Road Rash, of course, a game that found its way onto, several systems back in the day. Obviously, kicked off on the Mega Drive, but it never looked this good on the Mega Drive. And then found its way onto the PlayStation, several sequels, and quite a cool little soundtrack. Nice little video intro. Not as cheesy as most of the video that you get on here. Starblade, yeah. The Horde I've only recently discovered, Mark. I'm going to get into that. I couldn't tell you half the artists I'm on this, but I know there's some wicked soundtrack on it. Always a fun game to play. The only sad thing about this, I think it is only single player, which is a bit of a shame. But it's technically a remake of the Mega Drive version. So let's get into it anyway. It's the same one that found its way onto the PlayStation. It's just got a very different kind of hood and everything. These wicked stylised characters. How's it going, Chris? You alright, mate? You were there when we bought this 3DO, weren't you? So, yeah, we're going to thrash mode. Just jump straight into a race. See how we get on. These little intros actually do help make the game, I think. Let's see if we can do this. So the loading time's not too bad at all. Press the right button might help. Only slightly annoying thing, you can't actually use the shoulder buttons to punch. It'd be nice if you could use the shoulder buttons to hit left or right, but you can't. It's got some good pace on it, like you can see. Draw distance is good. Music's good. So we'll kick some ass. Oh no! Whoa! It's damn fast. Move, asshole. Yeah, put attack is with the C button, which is, you know, the shoulder buttons would have made a lot more sense at this point, but, you know, it works. You can kind of hold B and press C, so punch this asshole off. Asshole, come here. Come here. So with the actual rolling backgrounds and the higher frame rate, a lot more immersive than the Mega Drive version. Not as good as the PlayStation version, but you got to remember, PlayStation version was a little while after this, and the PlayStation obviously a lot more capable than this. Let's have a fight with this dude. Flynn, did you used to own an arcade? Come on, asshole. Ain't no light cycling riding there. I don't know if you've got the chains on this one. I know you got the clubs. You had the chains. I think it was on Road Rash 2, was it? You can get the chain off them. Whoa! Ah, wipe out. Not quite. I haven't had a copper chase me yet. Mind you if I run somebody over. Yeah, you really got to keep on your toes on this. But it handles really well, you know, the controls are good. The steering's nice, and this controller ain't too bad for games like this. It's like the feel of the controller somewhere between a Mega Drive pad and a SNES pad. It's like, it feels plasticky like a Mega Drive pad, but the buttons are soft like a SNES SNES button. So, get ahead of it. Gaining some speed now. You put a wheelie on this. There you go. Oh! Big wipe out. Oh, running back to your bike, man. Oh, getting by the cars. Yeah, pretty much, Chris. Good stuff. So, yeah, so, like I say, you like your games a bit more action-packed. That's Road Rash. Now, like I say, it was no... it wasn't shy at doing decent games, and it wasn't shy at attempting to do what the other systems was doing. One of the best games for the system, which I'm now going to show you, was some of the fighting games. Obviously, we're still in 2D territory here, and you know, it's not something that didn't make its way to some of the other 16-bit platforms. But Samurai Showdown, obviously a massive, you know, arcade game. And obviously bested on the Neo Geo, but still. get into it. And even the menu screen is very much like the MVS screen. Good thing about this though, unlike the Neo Geo CD, which is their own system, the loading times aren't absolutely frigging ridiculous. So, we got a Mario. So you get all this, and you're straight into the game, you know, no bullshit loading. You know, it's decent pace, you know, the scaling effects are there. I know the SNES and Mega Drive versions, I don't think they was there a Mega Drive version? But yeah, they didn't have the scaling effects. This has got the scaling effects that the Neo Geo had, so does that pretty well. All the samples and the sound effects sound accurate as well. Getting my ass kicked because I can't remember any of the moves. It's been so long since I played it, but... So that's the tornado. Oh, that's the throw, there we go. And kick his ass. You're born! And again, you know, if playing fighting games on a Mega Drive style pad's your thing, you'll soon get to grips with this. I'll just try and get to next character just to show you the load times are definitely nothing to be concerned about on this. If I don't lose, of course. Daze me, arsehole. No, you don't. I'll kill you, boy. Traded your 3DO in for a Saturn in the end when I read Trip Hawkins said they were stopping them. Yeah, it was kind of a shame really, you know. The 3DO, it's one of those systems, in my opinion, that would have been much better served if it just had the support, but you know, Sony were kind of going into new territory, you know. They were the success story, but they learned a lot from partnering with Nintendo, and being shunned by Nintendo in the end, I think, is what did them the best service. You know, Panasonic and the other people getting involved in the 3DO, they had no experience, well, they didn't have enough experience of the game industry as it stood, if you know what I mean. And they didn't have the connections to get the right people on board to produce the games for them. And obviously they still wanted to focus very much on the video and the 2D, which by that point was old hat, you know what I mean. They needed to be working on the 3D territory. So we'll just see how the second match loads up and just show you the load times ain't too bad. Pretty much negligible, to be honest. There you go. And into the match, you know what I mean? Nothing to be concerned about. If you've ever played this on a Neo Geo CD, you'll know how much of a pain in the arse the loading is. So again, another very good game. I know it was something that other systems were doing at the time, but this is probably one of the best ports of it I've ever played. It's fast, you know. It feels good on the controller. So, and then of course, a lot of people will, quite infamously, the 3DO had the best version of, the best port of, probably the most superior version of the game that everybody was playing at the time, which of course was Super Turbo. And the 3DO, quite unique, because it couldn't replicate the same samples as the arcade version or any of the home versions. They actually reworked the soundtrack for the 3DO version completely. So you got a slightly arranged version of the soundtrack and slightly resampled speech. So I'm going to turn it up slightly so you can hear it when it comes in. But yeah, Super Turbo. No other system had Super Turbo. I think the PC had it, but it wasn't a very good port, and nobody was running PCs at the time. And obviously, it in terms of quality, it shits on anything the 16 bits were doing at the time. this is also a good one to be able to show you what the difference is when you try and run a 60 Hz game on a 50 Hz machine. So watch this intro. Now there's already a slight delay between the sound and what you see on the screen. And what I'll do in a second is I'll jump over to the US version and you'll see what the difference is, but I'm just going to let, we'll go into a quick match.
Round one, fight.
And you can hear that the sound effects are slightly resampled. That's obviously playing at kind of standard Super Street Fighter speed, but it has got full speed, and if I jump in and start a match myself, we'll see that. Go light, medium, hard. Medium. This is where it becomes a bit strange, because the buttons that you're using for these, like I say, you got 3 in a row there, but then your other 3 buttons are here and then on the shoulders, which is a little bit annoying. It can be easy to kind of, unless you remember your your control scheme well, it's easy to kind of lose what you're doing mid-match. But as the game itself goes, I can't remember the Akuma code, else I'll be doing it. I also had this as well, but I sold it. Oh, I'm going to get my ass kicked now, ain't I? So I can't play on a control pad anymore. I'm not used to playing with a stick and my hands don't work well. I can hold my own with the best of them normally, but Super Turbo's hard as it is. But you can hear the slightly reworked background music. Get off me, you shitbag. At least I'm going to pull off a Dragon Punch. Gonna perfect me in it, yeah. But you can see just how, close to the arcade that is. Doesn't do justice on this screen, but everything about it is bang on. And I'll quickly show you the 60 Hz version of that, and I'll show you what I mean about the lag that you get. So if I go to USA, give it a second to load. There's a lot more ROMs in the USA folder. I need to fragment them down. Otherwise it takes bloody ages to load. How's it going? Super Turbo on it. Now if you watch the intro on this and see what the pacing's like on the audio versus the video, you can see where the problems can come. Some games it wouldn't matter, but on like on this it wouldn't matter too much when you're actually playing. But when you're playing an FMV game, you can imagine the lag can be a bit problematic. Can you see how the lightning effects aren't synced in with what's going on the screen? So the audio is already played at full speed, but the video is playing at the slowed down 50 Hz speed. So it's like a massive wait before that actually takes place. When you play the game, I mean, it's exactly the same, you know what I mean? But it's just weird to see. So let's jump into a game quickly. So the game's as fast as ever when you're actually playing it, you know what I mean? Yeah, you can't get away with cheap moves on this. But honestly, that is probably one of the finest games on here. If you can find a good joypad to play this with in a 6-button arrangement, even make a fight stick, this would be like the best home version of Street Fighter 2 you could possibly get. There's nothing wrong with it at all. All the frames of animation are there. Everything. Truly superb port. So we'll take a look at a few more games. You'll get to see now where the 3DO's weaknesses are. I'm going to go to a game a lot of you know and love. If I dash back a folder, actually I'm in the wrong folder here. If I go to the USA folder, I know that it is the USA version, but it doesn't really matter too much. You'll see why in a minute. Where the 3DO faltered was in handling 3D and pseudo 3D. Wasn't that great at handling polygons? Well, it was, but the way it was to code apparently was quite tricky, and it took people too long to get to grips with it. So I'm going to fire up the granddaddy of fucking first-person shooters here. We've got Doom, so let's fire this up. And unfortunately, this is one of the games that could have sold a system. And in the end, all it did was fucking highlight what was wrong with the way 3DO Corp was being managed, and where coding for it was going to be a problem. So we'll get into a level, and you're going to see a problem straight away. So we'll go to options. Sound, music, okay. Controls, fine. Screen size, right? Now you've got several levels of screen size, 4 to be exact. 1, 2, 3, 4. It's set to the biggest. And when it loads up, you're going to see... Well, you're going to ask, is that really the biggest? That's the biggest screen size you can get. That letterboxing is bullshit. The sound sounds fine. Okay, it's mixed, but it sounds fine. It's a little bit slower because, like I say, this is the 60 Hz version. But look how much that frame rate sucks. The draw distance isn't good. You can at least strafe using the shoulder buttons, which is good. Now, sounds good, but look how shitty that frame rate is. That is just unacceptable. Now I'm going to pause there and just mention, it's worth mentioning there are actually 2 secret screen sizes you can activate. I haven't got the cheat handy right this minute, but originally, and it was advertised on the box, that it would have 6 different sizes of screen available, and it does go to a kind of near full screen. However, they decided to disable it because the intention was that the 3DO wasn't powerful enough to run them properly, seeing how bad it runs at this size. And the intention was that they wanted those 2 screen sizes to only be available when you played this on the successor to this, or the add-on, which was going to be called the 3DO M2. Now, there's only about 3 or 4 prototypes of the 3DO M2 ever kind of come to surface, but it was going to be a successor to this or an add-on, and it was going to be a lot more powerful, but it was going to be backwards compatible with all 3DO software, and the intention was they thought that given the specs they were given, the 3DO M2 will be able to run it better. Now, what makes it a bit curious, and I'll turn this thing down again slightly, is it's not like the 3DO couldn't handle this. It's just that it had a really tight window of production. It was one woman who did it on her own, apparently, and she did what she could with the time, but the time was so narrow, she couldn't really optimise it for speed or anything, so it ended up being this, which was just like a massive disappointment. Damn shame, but you know, shit happens. Given more time, she could have done more, and like I say, the 3DO was capable of doing a lot more, and it was certainly capable of doing better for first-person shooters. If I jump over to another game here now, you'll see what I mean. When it resets, there we go. Takes a little while to reset. If I jump over to, and I think I've got it on here. Did I go past it when I was scrolling? Yes, Killing Time. If I go to Killing Time. Now, as a game, it's not a fantastic game, but this is another first-person shooter for the system. And when you see how this scrolls, I don't even care what the story is. It's such a weird game. I've got to put a name in of some sort, isn't it? There we go. Yeah, skip the video, skip the video. Now this moves a lot more smooth. I know it's not as detailed or anything, but that moves pretty well. It moves at a decent pace. It's at least playable. Why am I looking down? Yeah, and this, I think this was done in 3D, and this is working okay. I can't remember what the controls are. I'm trying to make shit out. Here we go. Now this scrolls okay, and this has got a slightly higher frame rate. So if this could do it, why couldn't Doom? You know what I mean? There's a couple of other examples, the name of which escapes me right at this moment, but the point is that this is a lot more playable. You know, it strafes a lot faster. It turns a lot faster. You know, if this could do it, why couldn't Doom? You know what I mean? I have no idea where I'm going, so I'm just going to kind of pass on that. But yeah, however, there is a little bit of light on the horizon. This is something I came across when I was actually looking through games to add to this system. Somebody as Power, I should try that. I want to show this quickly first, though, Gareth. This is something I came across recently. It's only recently started to be have patches released. If you've never checked it out, mate, you've got some spare discs. Check out OptiDoom. Here we go. Now this, somebody has gone back, reworked the fucking engine, and they've actually made a better version of Doom with more options to mess with. You can check your frame rates, larger field of play, and they've optimised some of the code to make it run at pretty much full screen, but at a playable pace. You can change some of the graphics options. You can have the sound track from the PlayStation version rather than the 3DO version. Here we go, look. Sound effects, original or PSX. We'll use the PSX soundtrack. And if I go to the options now, you can hear the sound effects when I'm panning through these. You can turn on or off the frames per second, so you can now see the frames per second count in the corner. We've got all 6 screen sizes. You can increase or decrease the wall textures to make it move at a slightly faster pace. You can do the same with the floor. You can change the depth shading, dark, bright, on, so that's like both. Object shading, and you can change the renderer from standard to wireframe if you want to. Not that you want to. There you go, wireframe. And the renderer to the standard renderer. There's plenty of different options now. So and you can change these during a match, so I can show you what these look like. Map lines, normal, thick, sky. You can set the sky to night, day, or whatever, or the PlayStation version of the sky, and the quality of it. It's even got some of the cheats enabled. Turn extra blood on. We'll start a game and I'll show you what this looks like now. I've messed with some of the options, wrong bloody options here, haven't I shouldn't glitch like that. Let me just change some of the options. Yeah, it is a very early beta patch, but yeah, that should be running full screen. Hang on. Here, I'll do it now. Oh, there we go. So as you can see there, you can turn the textures off, medium quality or high quality. You can make the floor just kind of Pantone, which makes it move along at a better rate. Change the renderer type, that makes it move along at a better pace. There you go, there's wireframe mode. Sound effects are a lot better on the PlayStation version. Leave the sky as default. Maybe that was what did it. I hadn't tried the other options. God mode. There you go, it's corrected itself now. Off you bugger. There you go, you can see the frame counter in the corner. Still a bit slow, you know what I mean, but that's in full screen now. And if I mess with the settings from there, I can probably make it chug along a bit faster. It does respond a lot better to the controls now, which is good. You've got the unlock mode, it's got all the cheats built in as well. If I mess with some of the options now, we should be able to see an increase in the frame rate. So if I go to set the sky to a fixed version, and we'll turn the thing shading off, depth shading to standard. Drop down the wall texture a little bit, drop down the floor texture a little bit, and we'll see what difference that makes to the pace. There you go, you can see how much smoother that looks now. It's gone up from what, 15 frames a second there to about 20 frames a second. Just a little bit of lag there, but if you want a more playable game, it's a lot more tunable. The guy is still working on the code at the moment, but he reckons he'll be able to get it running about as good as a PlayStation version with a bit more work. So I thought that was quite cool. Honestly, Gareth, it's worth checking out, mate. If you've got any discs, have a look. What you need is the original ISO, the American ISO, and then you download the patch. Just look for OptiDoom. And like I say, the sound's a lot better. Looks a bit more basic, but it makes it a lot more playable anyway. And you can tweak the options to how you want them, you know what I mean? So, yeah, it moves along at a much better pace now, on average. Not as much slowdown when you've got enemies on screen and things like that. No, not bad at all. So, since you mentioned it, I'll throw on Poed actually. Is it pronounced Poed or P-O'd? Is it P-O'd? As in pissed off? Let's see which version we got on here. Yeah, there we do. P-O'd. I'm guessing that's what it is. I like to watch easy. I'm over 30, I have arthritis in my fingers. I don't eat quiche. Yeah, I'll go with the easiest. Dear Mom, what, this is like Duke Nukem levels of weirdness. What a crappy day. What a really crappy day. It sure seemed like a sweet deal back at base. Imitate an ice cube for 3 months, feed some dumb mercs for 2 weeks, and then 3 more months on the fridge on the ride home. Yeah, I'll give up now. Been a long time since I acted. My frying pan and my butcher's knife have sewed my ass. Is that all I've got to work with? Right then. Love Ox. Is that my name? Right then. Let's give it a try. Oh, here we go. Oh, there we go. See, that's as weird as it is that I've got a frying pan. Oh, you can jump as well. That's nice. Oops. Jump right over the frigging side. Piss off. Are they shitting on me? That's running arses shitting on me. Yeah, that's some seriously weird shit, man. Being chased by rabid arses farting on me. I'm gonna get that arsehole. Literally, I'll get that asshole. I'll try to anyway, if I can control it. Level there, at the top there. Can I change weapon? I think that's all I've got is a frying pan at the moment, isn't it? Arse. I'll kill you, asshole. Walk up the slope. Walk up the slope. Rabid gobs and rabid arseholes. Nice. Let's be on me, man. Showing no quick turn. Okay, let's go through the door. Bit harder and the floor's like monotone like that to work out what's going on. Oh, lift. Here we go. You just got to kind of run at him, man. Could really do with a gun right about now. Some crazy shit Gareth you've put me on here. I could get into this. It's sick, but it's fun. Oh, I fell down. I'm going to get killed by rampant arses in a minute. I'm going electrocuted, ain't I? The fuck is he? I'm telling you, Steve, you know what I mean? That is mental. I'm going to have to give that one more of a try at some point. But talking of weird games, I'm going to show you one now, actually. I did come across it by accident. I mean, anybody who watches angry video game nerd will be aware of at least one fucked up anomaly, which, you know, really shouldn't exist on as a game, but it does, and that's plumbers don't wear ties. A lot of people have seen it. Probably best I don't put it up on the air, because I'll probably end up getting the video removed off Facebook. But yeah, it's just some shitty interactive movie thing where a woman gets naked and it's just a load of crap. But yeah, I've got that on here anyway. There are quite a few kind of sex-related games on here. There's a few, I think, officially licensed by Playboy. I haven't got them, but I know that there were. But one game I did find, I came across by accident, is this one, which is fucking weird, and I've realised it's something to do with a whole subculture in Japan. And I'm going to call this up anyway, see what you make of it. It's called the Yakuken Special. And you can read all about this afterwards, because I wonder what the fucking hell was going on. I mean, I knew a little bit about, like, Janken. You've heard of, well, you know, rock, paper, scissors. And obviously in Japan, you know, it's called Janken. And that they kind of made that a thing on Alex Kidd in Miracle World. A lot of people remember playing, because you fight against the Janken master at the end. Well, there's a big culture over there that apparently stemmed from baseball originally. Don't even ask me how. It's some kind of betting thing they do. Obviously for fucking perverts, but I'm going to show you this game anyway. And let's pick one of these lovely ladies. Lovely 80s, 90s looks to them. Yeah, exactly, Gareth. Yeah, that's good with her. Mai Misaki, 21. Yeah, I'm sure you got a nice personality. But then basically, you get this stupid fucking tune. I mean, the acting is just amazing. And then basically, all we're doing is playing fucking rock, paper, scissors with this woman. And of course, if you win, off something comes. Yeah, exactly, Gareth. I mean, the video quality's good, you know, the music's, the sound's alright, but this fucking tune is just... Yeah! And I can tell you now from playing it before, it's biased as fuck. You never usually get 2 or 3 in a whole game. You know what I mean? Exactly, Gareth. I guess this is how everyone got their cheapies back in the 90s, you know what I mean? I wouldn't mind, but some of these women are some of the most low-rent, cheap hookers you could find, I think. Fucking hell, 3 in a row? It's never happened. It's usually really biased against you. You usually get 3 and no more. Well, she got some kind of top on. I want to see the first arsehole is to report my video. You know what I mean? We've got to see how far we go now, haven't we? If I do win this one, I've got to turn it off, because you know what's coming next, do you? Oh shit! It's never done 4 in a row. Right, you can't see that. No, you definitely can't, because I'll have my video removed. So. So anyway, yeah, that's the Yakyukin special. I looked into it anyway. Yeah, exactly. I looked into it, and apparently it derives from baseball or something over there, and and like it's some kind of gesture they used to call out, and they've turned this gesture into something they call out when they do a Janken match, and apparently they do it in bars and stuff in Japan. It's some kind of fucking cultural cheap thrill where like these women just strip off and they play for fucking money and everything. Fucking rock, paper, scissors for money and strip versions. So yeah, so that's just absolutely fucking mental. I found it the other day and I was like, what the fucking hell's this? And then I saw like the music and that. I was like, what the hell is this shit? But yeah, that's just crazy anyway. So anyway, let's just have a look at 1 or 2 more games and then we'll knock it on the head. Yeah, we'll chuck on Autobahn Tokyo. Yeah, you've been spared, Gareth. You've been spared. Right, I think our Autobahn Tokyo runs anyway. There is a version... There we go. Alright, dog, chill. So, let's give this a quick spin. I've not actually played this yet, but I've heard it's quite good. Oh, quite a basic car model, but you know. That's supposed to be a Honda CRX, looks like it. I used to really want one of them back in the day. Oh, it's pretty quick. Handle's okay. Change viewpoints as well. It's no fucking Ridge Racer, but yeah, that shakiness I think is coming to do with the 50-60 hertz problem. Imagine on an NTSC version that looks fine. Not so bad when you're in the car, so. Smashed by someone. Assuming I'm supposed to be drifting these corners, by the way. Seems to be the thing in Japan now, drifting. I'm definitely in last. At least no penalty for smashing into things. Whoa! Bit of clipping going on there. So yeah, so like 3DO can do 3D. I mean, there's no denying it. Definitely does, like, you know, 2D best. But, you know, I mean, there's some quite famous, you know, FMV games on here that have got to port things like Night Trap, and the one I showed on the preview picture for tonight actually is Corpse Killer, and I mean the video quality on here is far higher than it is obviously on you know, far higher than it is on the Mega CD or even the CD32X version. You got a lot more colours to choose from the 3DO. It's a lot smoother. If you ever played the CD32X version, all this intro and everything is very close to it. But the quality of the video is so much higher on here. And the audio is as well. Could have had a nice cheesy B movie. But it's basically just like a rail shooter. Unfortunately though, not a light gun one. Sometimes these cutscenes are more interesting to see than playing the games themselves. Walking stereotype. Well, this is the actual game. Zombies just kind of appear out of nowhere. They don't really fit in with the background. It's never fun playing these with like a crosshair either. Really, this is the kind of game that needs to be played with a light gun, and this isn't a light gun game, sadly. I mean, look at that. Why are there flying fucking zombies? Ain't even any blood, look.
This retreat is probably routine.
Yeah, totally. So, but then there are a couple of ports of the American laser games on here, which is good. I really would like to get the light gun for this, because several of the American laser games are on here. You've got Mad Dog McCree 1, Mad Dog McCree 2, was it Drug Wars, is it? Crime Patrol, I think it is. There you go, Crime Patrol. I've got it marked up with a light gun. Drug Wars, that's Crime Wars, that's Crime Patrol 2. I think you got Who Shot Johnny Rock on here. There you go, Mad Dog McCree 1 and 2. I'll tell you what, the most exposure anyone ever got to Mad Dog McCree back in the day was on fucking Games Master. I'm sure they had the game on there so many times in the early days. If it's working, there we go. The guy's got evil eyes, man. So yeah, you can actually play this with a light gun, but you can play with the crosshairs. Although I'll be honest, with the crosshairs, it's fucking impossible. See if we can shoot one person. I happen to know where the first person is. Let's see if we can get him. You have to use the C button to accelerate your gun, or the B button to half accelerate it, and then A to shoot. When it's moving normal, it's so slow, it's ridiculous. You'd never be able to complete this without a light gun. It's barely playable. Speech is good though, video's not bad. This is probably the better use of the FMV. Sick of listening to her though, so let's go with start. And now the first dude comes up over here somewhere. See if I can get him at least. Yeah, got him. Got the second one now. So I mean, you just need to be a lot faster, and there's no way you can do it on a fucking joypad. So yeah, but I'd like to get a light gun to be able to play those. I think it'd be quite cool. I suppose I better show you just one last more. We'll go with Wing Commander, just to show you FMV at its best, I suppose. And I think I've got the European version on here, so Could be wrong. There we go, Wing Commander 3. There we go. You can see how big this game is. It's a 4-disc game, you know what I mean? That's a big game. Probably not that much video when you, well, not that big a game when you consider the compression techniques probably weren't the best back then, but still. Cool, innit? It is a cool game. I really need to get back into it, man. I've got this set up now. I might actually have a bit of a gaming session this weekend on it, maybe. You can get a proper like video intro and everything. Oh, of course, yeah. John Rhys Davies. That's and Tom Wilson's in it. God, I forgot about all these. Yeah. Malcolm McDowell, of course. Yeah, John Rhys Davies. That's Salah, in it, out of Indiana Jones. Yeah, I really need to get back to grips with this game, man. I love it. Oh, what's the controls? There we go. There we go. Oh, Luke. Go to the lift. Talk to the monkey. Oh, whatever he is, lion monkey.
Busted wing flaps. But it's great to see you, buddy.
And how is the fine pilot and comrade Angel?
I don't have a clue. I haven't heard from her in a while. She's on some damn covert off for Tolwyn. But hey, I got good news for you. I put you back on the fly roster.
But I requested...
Never mind that. I want you with me on my first mission.
Well, there are many brave and noble pilots here.
Yeah. But when my life's on the line, I want a wingman I can trust.
I shall try not to disappoint you, old friend.
There we go. That's very much I can show you guys right now. I've got. Yeah, I'll catch you all soon. But I hope you enjoy this little tour of the 3DO. Anyway, I'm going to be back very soon with another video. Like I said, I've got Spectrum next video coming. I've got some new consoles and stuff I want to show you. We're looking at some stuff with the CRT next time anyway. So, anyway, I hope you enjoyed the video. It's good to be back doing my streams and that again. I'll catch you real soon. Share it and drop any comments in the thread afterwards. Right, see you later, guys.